Okay. You want to start, Matt? Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to pause it because Matt can't hear anyone. Let's try and troubleshoot for a couple more minutes. Is everyone okay with that?
Of course.
Okay, so morning everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulties. With Matt not being, or without us being able to hear Matt, I'll take over just going through the agenda. Let me know if anyone wants to say anything. I think Isaac, you're on mute, and Cindy, just jump in when you need to. So the first thing is to call the meeting to order. Our meetings are open. We're recording this and we'll put it on the website. So the first thing is we need a motion to accept the agenda.
I can move that.
Please.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine, Cindy.
Isaac seconding.
Okay, and I'm assuming it's all carried.
Yep.
And sorry, I need to admit Matt. Hi, Matt. So we just have accepted the agenda. So Cindy put the motion forward, Isaac seconded, and we're just making seeing if it's carried. So any opposed? That is a no. Okay, so any declarations of conflicts? Okay, not hearing any. We're going to move on. Approval of the minutes. We'll need a motion for that.
I'll move that motion to approve the minutes. Isaac.
Okay. Do we have a seconder?
It's Cindy. I wasn't there, so I don't think I can can second that.
I think we can second it just for information if you weren't there.
Okay, sounds good.
Rather than approval of the minutes, it'll be minutes for information.
Perfect.
Okay, so Cindy and I will change that motion. Minutes. Information. Because I believe the only person who was at the last one was Isaac.
I believe the only person who was at the last one was Isaac.
Okay. All in favor?
Favor?
Oh, I see that Matt's trying to say something. Now it seems to have gone off. Okay. I'm just going to type in any. Going to do this so everyone can see any comments on the minutes. Motion is to accept. Okay, so I've added the comments.
I see a microphone beside Matt's name now.
I know. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
Yay.
Holy. I do apologize. Technology at its finest. I'll tell you. I was just about ready to throw my laptop across my office here.
Okay, so we've changed the motion from approval of the minutes, because because I don't believe you were at that meeting either, to acceptance of the minutes for information only.
From the last marketing meeting, I was there.
Oh,
Yeah,
we're-
Matt, I was there at the last.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I was. So I can, I know Isaac, motion that I can second it, so it's accepted.
So let's do that. Matt, second as for approval. Okay, and that I'm assuming is carried. Matt, do you want to take over?
Sure. So you did number 5, right? So now we're on to number 6. I don't think there's any new committee members.
I don't know if Cindy is actually joining this committee.
That's a good question. Cindy, are you wanting to join this committee? It's a dark hole, Cindy. It's a dark hole.
Well, I know we were thinking of, I know a couple other BIA members had wanted, board members had wanted to kind of collaborate on a more collaborative communications vision. So I don't know if you guys have time in your agenda that could be dedicated to a section focused more on that piece, because if you are, then we won't have to have meetings on the side. We could use your
100%.
meeting as an umbrella for that. Sorry?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, then I'm a new committee member.
Okay. Do we have to have a
Thank you.
motion for that, Angela?
No, because she's a board member.
Okay, perfect.
Only if it's someone outside of the board do we need to do that.
Awesome. So welcome.
So then, thank you. So is number 10 communications planning, that'll be a standing item on your agenda from now on, or is that something?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay,
We'll
perfect.
add it to every meeting.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving on to item number 7, marketing budget update. Angela, can you take the lead on this?
I can. So we've, as you guys, most of you guys, so the board members, know that we've redone the budget as of June with the numbers that the city had given us. So basically the mixed media campaign is zeroed out. Most of the stuff is pretty much gone. We do have some, excuse me, left in miscellaneous advertising and marketing. A lot of that is for social media. So things like during COVID, we did some videos, we took photo shoots. So things like that, as we're opening up, we're thinking of doing that. But some of that can also be in membership engagement, some of the funds for that. So we had signs made up that the members held. So if we make the signs, that would come out of the membership engagement part. So I think we probably have about $2,000 in total that we get to play with, which isn't a lot. But considering the situation, we tried to at least keep something in for this.
And can we figure out, or maybe you already know, Angela, I know you've done a great job in sort of picking up where everything sort of got left off, and whether you have had time or not, if we could sort of cue it when you have time to look into it. What's sort of the burn rate for social media? Have we done in the past? What is this $2,000 realistically going to get us, and what can we expect?
I'm going to defer to Taylor, who
I was gonna say. Oh,
is
sorry.
our marketing and communications contract person right now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she will be able to better answer that.
Yeah. So an example that I can give you is, or a good example at least, is for some of our Facebook posts, like promoting and boosting those to get more engagement. And that can be anything from getting more views on a video or driving people to a certain link like our website. We spend about $20 on like a 5 to 6 day campaign, and that gets us usually between 2,000 to 5,000 views or engagement clicks from various community members and different audiences. So, and that's of course adjustable, so we can really tailor it to fit any kind of budget that we have.
Yeah, because I guess another piece moving forward, and Cindy, feel free to chime in on this. This will be an integral part of the communication plan too, moving forward, right? Because we've got to make sure that we're spending these dollars appropriate and getting the best bang for the buck.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
Okay, so is there any questions on line item number 7? So long and the short of it, sounds like we've got about $2,000 to play with for social media moving forward for the back end of the year. So I think, again, when we finally get down to item number 10, you know, some of it, if not the majority of it, might be spent on you know, the communications piece and how we want to relay ourselves not only to our members but the general public.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, this is, I guess, a segue into number 8, social media, covert activities and updates. So I would assume, based on the discussion, we've been spending, obviously, the dollars to date on covert activities and updates. Is that correct, Angela?
Yeah, we have been. So like I said, we've done videos and done photo shoots. I would like to continue on with those instead of sourcing them out, which we did in the past. We have Roger, who's a summer student,
Yep.
and Taylor, and between the two of them, I think we should be able to manage the photo shoots and little videos.
So do we know, is there any costs associated to this program?
The only cost that I can foresee, there might be some software like Canva, which is, I think it's around $20 a month, which we could do on a short-term basis, and then maybe getting some signage made up for the photo shoots.
So for those who don't know, what does that software do for us, Angela?
I don't know. I'm going to let Roger or Taylor take that on.
So Canva is a very easy to use design software, essentially. So it is growing, and there are animation capabilities now. So you can create things like GIFs, if you're aware of what those are. And then just really any kind of design element or piece that you need, you can create there, whether it's an invitation, signage, an email template. So the pro version that does have a cost associated with it. It has access to a lot more features and different graphics, has a slightly more professional look to it as well. I am working on getting us a non-for-profit account with them, so that would be significantly reduced in cost, if not free, but I still have to wait to hear back from them.
Okay. So worst case scenario, if we're looking at about $120-ish for the back end of the year if we continue with it, right?
Yes.
Dollars a month, say six months. Okay.
Yeah.
It's sincere. I was just wondering, just with the whole COVID marketing, if there's any other national or God, even international campaigns we can piggyback on. Like, I'm sure there's a ton of shop local, support local, or different hashtags we can tie into.
Yes, absolutely. And we try to use a lot of those hashtags on our posts right now, at least where it's relevant. I would definitely like to look into more kind of like welcome back type of campaigns. If there are, I don't know if there are any going on or whether we can create them ourselves, but I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah, it was funny even when you said and you're in Canva making invitations. I'm like, oh my gosh, we could even do like invite invitations to come downtown or to, visit particular places that are opening, and almost like a formal invitation out to people. And there's all kinds of creative things, but you guys know way more about than me. But it's just exciting that I think now that things are starting to open, if we can jump on the bandwagon of existing campaigns and roll with those as well, it'll give us more momentum.
Absolutely.
Oh, great point. Okay, any other questions around line item number 8? Okay, moving on to line item number 9, website update. Angela, can you provide us with an update on where we sit with that?
I'm going to pass that on to Taylor because she's more in contact with the website guy.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were working on a phase 2. That is now on hold until January because it won't fit in the budget. but we have a lot of the groundwork done for that. So as soon as we want to start that back up, it'll be ready to go. And right now we're working on getting back-end access to more of the website. So things like the members page, our coder and developer is working on giving us access to that so that we don't have to keep going through him to upload things like the videos of the meetings and the agendas, just because it's a little bit time consuming and we're constantly emailing him for that. We are also restarting our uploading of articles for the blog. So we want to keep those about one a week to try and keep our website fresh and keep people coming back and looking at new stuff. And part of that is working on more blog articles. So we're trying to brainstorm some new ideas. If anyone has any articles that they'd like to see, or if anyone's interested in writing a guest piece, or knows anyone who might be interested in something like that, that is also on the table as an option.
So do we know currently what the organization charges us for any updates to the website as it sits now?
Angela, I don't
And is
know
there
if
any
you can answer
dollars
that question.
associated to this back-end platform being built for us?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I haven't been made aware of that either. It depends on the complexity of the coding for that one members page, but Miles hasn't indicated any costs as of yet.
But I will ask him directly.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, can we ask that question? Because I hate for us to all of a sudden get hit with a bill and us not be aware that that there is dollars associated with this.
Yeah, well, and I can also ask if there is, that it be included in the January phase 2 continuation, like he bills us then.
Yeah, but it's still good to know for budgeting purposes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think it was already built in for the phase 2.
Yes.
So I'll talk to him and see what we can do.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions on line item number 9, website update? No? Okay, terrific. Now moving on to line item number 10, communications planning. And again, I just wanted to thank our new committee member, Cindy, for doing a fantastic job and putting the document that's in our package together. I think it's a great building block to springboard us forward in doing which we've all, I think, said we can do better at one time or another, which is communication not only to our membership, but the general public. So Cindy, are you okay if I turn this to you?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And walk us through. And again, thanks so much for taking your time to put this together. It's fantastic.
Well, I can't take all the credit. I'd be stealing Roger's thunder because he's the one who had the original document. So thank you,
well,
Roger.
thanks to Roger as well.
Yeah, he deserves the credit, not me.
I just Cindy did all the work.
So Roger's plan was really awesome, and it focused a little bit more on COVID. So I tackled the beginning part to try to make it a little more general, just a general communications plan, which is interesting because I have zero background in this. So I'm going to lean heavily on Taylor and Roger to help with this. But just to walk through, first, the communication objectives, kept them really broad in general. I think it's just speaking to the focus of member engagement, increasing transparency communication, and making downtown more inviting. So all pretty standard stuff in the beginning just to set the stage. Our approach, of course, will include social media as probably our primary vehicle, mailings. I wanted to do a little more one-to-one communication. That seems to be missing. I think we've either avoided or not spent enough effort on engaging. I would say the spectrum of people who are either adamantly opposed or adamantly for the BIA and drawing on those resources, because both can be seen as resources. We need that constructive feedback to know how and where we can improve, and we need to run on the momentum of the positive folks who have great ideas who keep turning them over to us. So I think focusing a little more on that one-to-one, tapping into that energy will be good for us. Project background is pretty straightforward. We just need to be more adaptive to change, more responsive. We need to be ahead of that curve instead of always putting out fires after they've started. And again, our current status right now, and there's so many buzzwords right now, and pivoting came to mind, but we're really pivoting and being responsive regarding our financial status. There was a lot of controversy with the big levy increase, and then COVID happened, and our financial status has been, through a whirlwind. So really nailing that down so that the members are clear as to where we're going, where the money's going. Everybody feels that they're included and the process is transparent, I think is a really big step for us to focus on. So number 4 is the meat and potatoes of where I kind of wanted to spend time with you guys today to tease out a little bit more detail, because I think of this more as our action plan. So it's divided into internal and external communication. So to focus on the internal first, I think events in the past year or two have shown us where we can tweak and tighten up our communication strategies internally as well. And that's everything from our board of directors down to our staff and ED, and looping in the city of Oshawa and continuing to build on that relationship. So for the board of directors, obviously we have our regular meetings, we have our committee meetings. The chair also kind of emails us and keeps us informed. I know Sue Lupton is working on getting us governance training, so that'll, make our communication much more streamlined and effective during the meetings. And I sit on another board, and I didn't technically ask for their permission. So I posted it as a sample, and we can tweak it to our needs, but it was really effective for that board to do a little evaluation after the meeting. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to check down to Appendix A, but it just gives feedback as to whether or not the directors had enough time to review the material, if everybody's engaged in discussion. So it's ranked on a scale from 1 to 7. So if there's a director who potentially didn't feel that their voice was heard, or they didn't have opportunity to participate, it picks up on the nuances of that. And then it goes back to the chair, and it's like, okay, well, how can we make sure everybody's more engaged? Do we need to do a round table? So it just gives us opportunity to troubleshoot and problem solve issues that we might not be aware of. So I'd like to bring that forward as something to incorporate at the end of our board meetings, and I just was wondering how everybody else felt about that.
Isaac, any feedback?
It's like, unless I lulled everybody.
Yeah. So I don't feel strongly really one way or another on that. I think if I was to lean one way, I'd say it's always good to get the feedback, because we're going to identify whether or not there's areas for improvement, right? Without doing it, we're not going to know, right? So, so I would lean towards it not being a bad idea.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree, Cindy, too. I mean, I think it's something that every organization falls short on, even if you're increasing your levels of communication. You just can't communicate enough, right? There's always going to be that outlier that says there's still something missing, right? But what I do like is it's spelled out here in black and white for us, and it's becoming sort of a best practice, if you would, right? And I think it is a great baseline for us to build upon.
Okay, so then if I can ask, like I said, I will ask permission from my other board if we can use their sample as a template. And
Yep.
if you guys can maybe just read through the questions and add, change, or modify them as you see fit. I envision this going out, and I don't know, Angela, how you feel about it, but kind of like an anonymous SurveyMonkey poll after the board meeting. I think ideally it would be anonymous. At my other board, we started out with pen and paper after the meeting and just handed them in at the end of the meeting. I don't know which is more or less work or preferred, so I'll throw that out on the floor as well.
I like the SurveyMonkey approach personally, because well, and I say that in today's environment where if we do it by hand, we got to take efforts to scan and do all that sort of stuff. So it would just be more convenient.
Yeah. Okay, well, why don't I take that on, and then I'll do it in SurveyMonkey, and then after every board meeting, I'll just send out an email with a link and see how that goes, if we get enough responses or if people are willing to participate. So Matt, how does this work? Would you be the one to introduce this at the next board meeting? As
Yeah,
a
so we have to, in the marketing update, marketing communications update, we have to bring this forth to the board.
Okay, so what material? You just need a copy of the formal survey, and then the board
That's
will
correct.
vote on.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. You got it.
I'll have that for you.
I
That's
suppose
awesome.
it'd be no issue to then just transpose those exact questions into SurveyMonkey.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Gotcha.
Okay, perfect. So we'll get that done. So any more comments on the board evaluation? Okay, perfect.
Straightforward. Yep.
Is there anything else, do you think, from the board of directors perspective that we need to work on as far as communicating? The only other thing I didn't put in the chart, but Angela dug up some old policies on social media posts and posting. I'm not sure, as a board of directors, it's come up that we're all going to have that common email. And I don't want to policy everybody to death, but is it worthwhile having a statement or figuring out how we're going to respond when we start getting emails, or just wait till we get them?
No, it's a good question. I mean, I think we should, and we should revisit the current policies, which are aged, and I think that goes back several years, right, Angela, when we first put them in?
Yeah, it goes back to the really bad picture.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's actually on my to-do list. I'm going to revisit a lot of those social media policies. Things have changed and best practices have become more tried and true now. So I'm definitely going to work on updating those.
Okay, terrific.
Perfect. And the board email account. Do we want to plan for that, or just kind of wait and see how it's going to roll out?
For the what, sorry, Cindy?
The board email account, if members email the board directly.
Well, then I think it has to be clear, and we've got to be clear on who answers it, right? So,
yeah,
so we're going to... Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, because as it stands right now, like, I'm not even clear if it's live, or I know, Angela, you were going to put like an automatic reply back saying, thank you so much for contacting us. And I don't know if it's live yet, or what we're going to do when we get our first email.
Live. Sorry, the email is live. I don't know if that message has been put on yet. Josh was going to look into how to do it because it's done as a group. So he was supposed to get back to me, and I will contact him today to see where we are in that process. And
refresh us, Angela, what protocol did we put in place for who's responding to that?
That was what Cindy's group was supposed to be determining. So that, I think, should be determined here, like who is going to respond. And then you guys take that back to the board, whether as it's this is our suggestion of response, or this is how we think it should be.
So put it out there to the group. Thoughts?
I don't mind being the contact person. So if an email comes in, it goes to all of us. And then maybe in the automatic response, we could have, please allow like a 24-hour turnaround. So if any of the individual board members have any concerns or comments or anything, any inside information that they might have regarding the topic that's being brought forward, to get in touch with me, I could draft a response. I just don't know work-wise how many emails we're going to get and how feasible it is to have that 24-hour period. So I wait to hear from everybody, draft a response, send the response out to the board for feedback, and then reply to that individual. That seems a bit much, but I don't know how comfortable the board is in letting one person kind of respond on their own with vetted.
I recall from the board meeting that everyone was really quite happy with the way the last letter was written, that, it was drafted, everyone had input, and then you compiled it and it was sent out. I would suggest, though, instead of a 24-hour lead time, probably a 48. Give yourself a couple of days. Even I wouldn't even put like 48 hours, I'd put something.
Yeah, I wouldn't
3 days.
quantify it, to be honest, because again, if someone's away, vacation, what happens there, right?
Yeah.
My other
Yeah.
concern, like, I'm okay with communicating that we strive to get back to you within, 48 hours, but I don't even know if that's, if we position it like that as opposed to making the commitment, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
Well, and
Yeah.
because you guys are all volunteer, it's a volunteer board, I don't think people would be that upset if it said, we strive to get back to you within 1 week.
But I'm just
I
wondering
think
if there's a way that we can not tag a time to it, right?
Yeah, I agree with Matt. And I'm even thinking, even acknowledging, as we are a volunteer board, we will get back to you as soon as we can or as soon as
Bingo.
possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That sounds
Yep.
good.
Because
Okay, so
another
if every-
question I have is once we're replying, Angela, maybe this is a question for Josh too. So if if it happens to be Cindy that we decide upon today is going to be the response person, if she replies from that email, does it show that email, or is it going to come from her personal?
Ooh,
Probably
that's
going
a
to
good
come from her personal, but I will verify that.
Because
Or
we probably don't want it to be coming from her personal, and then we need sort of a policy in place that Cindy, I would assume that you just CC that board email again, so we all see the response too, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I would almost rather write it on behalf of the chair and have the chair respond to. I think that's
Okay.
more professional. It seems more
So
proper.
we just need to, after this meeting, then it's a very good point. And if Isaac, if you're in agreement with it, we can just sort of put that proposal forth to Ivano.
Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. So the email will come in, I'll draft a response, circulate it to the board for feedback, and then after the feedback's incorporated, Ivano will reply.
Okay, I'm good with that. Isaac?
Yeah, I'm good.
Perfect.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
So you just need to, we need to loop Ivano in, Angela?
Yep, not a problem. I will find out about the board email and
Well, it's irrelevant at this point because it'll come from Ivano's.
well, he might not want it to come from his personal email, but we can also
Okay.
give him access to the board email, so he
Yep.
can just log in through that and send it.
Sure. Again,
Okay,
what we just want to instill is that even on all these responses that the board is somehow CC'd or blind copied, so
Yes.
every director can see.
Yeah.
The two-way communication, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Matt, it might be super cheesy, but even in our auto response to say, thank you for your email, all directors received it. A response will be a collaborative response amongst all board members, and totally making our process transparent as well.
Yeah, well, because this is where this time issue that we discussed earlier comes into play, because the item might have to come to the board to be discussed, right?
That's perfect. Yeah, I like that.
So Cindy, can you draft a response, please?
Yes, ma'am. Make a note here. Okay. So that's I think that's enough for the board to work on for now, as far as the board line there. The next internal communication to be tweaked is regarding the ED staff and students. So I thought what we might want to add in there, build in at some point, is more of a 360-degree feedback, where it provides opportunity for the ED staff and students to give feedback to the board on our communication and on our performance, instead of just us feeding feedback down the chain. And I do think we need, and I'm not sure, I put this in there, but I know how key performance appraisals are. I'm not sure how regularly we do them, but to maybe set up a more regular interval of that as well.
Agreed. Yeah, Ivano and I actually had that conversation probably a couple weeks ago on performance appraisals. So it's an opportunity for us for sure.
So for the 360-degree feedback, so that's, you know, Angela and Roger and Taylor, you guys, what would you envision to be the most effective way for you to give feedback to us about your job, the expectations, your coworkers, the colleagues, the general work culture that we're creating?
I guess that depends on what sort of specifics you're looking for. Like it could be something as simple as like the Likert scale that you've got for Appendix A, or it could be more complex as, you know, having a one-on-one with one or two staff or board members.
Yeah, I agree with Angela. If there was maybe some sort of annual or I don't know, we can set a time period, but there's some sort of annual feedback, like a Likert scale or a little survey, that kind of thing, just to get a general idea for the entire year, and then approach it issue by issue if there's something more complex.
My only concern is I think a year is too long, because a lot can happen in a year.
Oh, absolutely. That was just a general, you know, the first thing that popped into my head. It could be like every 3 or 4 months, or twice a year, whatever you guys feel are necessary, or we all feel necessary. But I definitely think something more high level, and then if anything needs to be approached in a one-on-one or smaller group settings, then just knowing that we can initiate those kinds of meetings might be beneficial.
If the annual performance appraisal can be split, one giving feedback, and then the other more of a 360, the person being appraised providing feedback. And then Matt, do you know if we have a formal outline for a performance appraisal that we use? Like, is it a standardized one?
Currently, I can't speak to that. That's more an Avano question. I know years ago there was in place, and Angela, you can speak to that because I know delivered some to yourself. I can't speak past that point. What's on file?
Okay, so Amanda did have one, and I believe I know for sure that there's a paper copy of one that's filled out, but I will check to see if I can find any blank ones. But going back, I think that if we did, you know, like the Likert scale sort of thing, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and then have, more of a meeting for, you know, like an actual performance review. But
yeah, typically, and here's my 10 cents, feel free to give me change, anyone. Typically, when you do a performance available appraisal, it should be, you know, 360 based, where not only are we giving feedback to the staff person, but they're also giving feedback to us. That's you know, ideally how a performance appraisal should go. But then to your point, Cindy, is you don't want to wait a year to find out all the skeletons in the closet, right? So to have, and I like the idea of sort of a quarterly formal, but I would hope that we are fostering and will continue to foster that if there's ever an issue of concern with any staff member, that we have an open door policy, and that can be addressed either with our executive or the board directly when it happens, rather than sort of after the fact.
Yeah,
that's an important piece to move forward, is that we foster that environment.
Agreed. So why don't I draft a super quick Likert scale survey for staff to give us feedback, and maybe even just like 5 questions. We could give that out quarterly online, so it's super quick. And then I would like to push for a biannual review so that we have performance appraisals at the 6 month marks. And I think we need a standardized form that clearly incorporates what you're saying, Matt, the 360.
Yep.
So Angela, you know what, if you don't mind digging up whatever one you have access to or the most recent.
Yep, no problem.
And then I can review it, and if there's not a strong 360 component, I can add one in and circulate to you guys for feedback. And we'll make. Does that sound like a decent proposal to bring forward?
Yeah, no, I think so too. And we gotta punt that to the board too, right, Cindy, to get their.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
to get their buy-in and acceptance of it, and then that forces the board executive to execute on it.
And I'd also ask you, Angela, like, do you have any other feedback with the process and how it's been followed in the past that you could pass on that you think could improve from your standpoint?
Sure. To be honest,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I think you're the best person to ask.
I haven't had a review probably in 3 years at least.
Okay.
Amanda kept saying, "Oh, we'll do your review, we'll do it." Where she actually did one for Carice and for Amanda, but I've never had one since Amanda was here, and never had one the whole time that Garth was here either. Yeah.
Wow.
The other thing, though,
That's not good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a shame on us for sure.
Yep.
the other thing, though, is that we should probably be bringing this forward to the governance committee before it goes to the board,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
right?
Yep. Yep.
That's
so
fair.
the governance committee meeting is the day before the board meeting.
Oh, perfect. Because maybe that'll give me enough time to pull together a proposal for them with the package and the sample measures and stuff.
Yeah.
Perfect. And Angela, I'm curious, did you have any more insights or feedback? Because yeah, you would know the best, or what you would like to see in place.
I think that having the quarterly where we can give input is really good. I think flags probably would have been raised earlier if that process had been in prior.
Mm-hmm.
Would Angela, would you, so we've talked a lot about having a Likert scale type of survey, which is great. Would you appreciate the opportunity to have kind of like an open field to kind of just type in, you know, some general concerns or things you'd like to make us aware of? Would that be helpful? I think actually the template here actually has a number 10 additional comments I'm seeing here, so.
Yeah, so I think that would be good, but if you're going to have that, I think it does need to be sort of anonymous as well, because you're going to have, depending on who's receiving it as well. So who's receiving it is also going to cause some concerns, right? You know, if it's to go to the ED, are you going to get a true picture from your staff? Probably not. Is it going to go to governance? Then you're probably going to get more of a perception, just because that's the sort of the governing body for all the policies, right?
Well, I envision the anonymous quarterly going out to all staff, even volunteers, students, everybody, and then it would probably loop back to the governance committee for evaluation, I would think. Or would it follow under this new communications thing? I don't know.
So that's something you guys get to decide.
Yeah, well, I see it bouncing back and forth between communications and governance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see how governance feels about it. And
I mean, really, we're gonna be the drivers in the communication piece of it, and then hopefully governance accepts it and then drives it to the board of directors, right?
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. I'm just gonna make a note. Okay. Lastly, in internal, the city of Oshawa, I know there's always been, I don't even know, it's kind of like this awkward communication where we want to be autonomous, but they are our funders, and you know, it's kind of this back and forth between who's telling who to do what, when really there's no reason why we can't be working hand in hand. So I know one thing was brought to light fairly recently, that the city clerk was supposed to be CC'd on all of our minutes and agendas, and she hadn't been. So that's a super quick fix. So I think moving forward, Angela, that's in place now, right?
Yeah. So the one thing though is we were never told in advance, like since I've been here, that they were to get the board packages when the board got them.
Yeah.
So it was the minutes. And I know that, you know, when Garth came on, he took over sending them, or at least that's what I was under the impression of. So I think that's partly where it sort of stopped was that
Mhm.
previous to that, I would always send it to the clerk afterwards. And yes, I haven't yet, but I will be setting up a list where Mary is on there so that the clerk's office does get the board package when the board does receive it. And that will
Yeah.
take care of that issue.
And I wasn't sure how or who to touch base with at the city to get a better understanding of what they would like to see from us. I mean, I know Councillor Kerr is on the board and we have Sue and Kyle there. From my understanding, what they bring back from the board is limited. It's not really their job to be that conduit of an information exchange. And one thing that was brought to light to me in the recent events was how we had some really strong oppositional presentations in council chambers, but nobody kind of from the BIA was representative from a positive note or board member or anything like that. I didn't know if it's I stay out of it for a reason, so I'm the most politically ignorant person ever, but I didn't know if the board should have a stronger presence doing presentations for the councillors or getting involved in that arena. That's something that I'm kind of skittish around because I'm not politically savvy, but I don't know if it's an area we want to explore to try to build better relations.
Matt, do you
Well,
want
it all depends on what the topic is, right? I mean, obviously, if it pertains to something, to our budget, what have you, then yes, if we're invited to do so, then we should. Otherwise, I guess the question is are you perceived as being sort of lobbying, right?
Is that wrong? Because I don't think we were invited to much lately, which may not have been in our best interest. I don't know. We can table this for further discussion, but it's just something that I think we need to continue to build on our relationship with the city, and the best way to do that, I
100%.
think is Sorry?
Yeah, 100%. No, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so should we just kind of let that brew for a little bit and sit on it? And
I think first of all, just including the city clerk, is disappointed to find out that went sideways because again, when I was on the board previously, we had a great relationship with the city, and always forwarded stuff to the city clerk. So I was disappointed to see that stopped.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll sit on that one and maybe brainstorm if anyone can think of any points of contact to explore at the city or find out what we can do. We'll move forward with that. Now I'm just looking at the time. Do you guys want to sit on the external communication till the next meeting, or did you want to keep going, or what are your thoughts?
So I booked this meeting for 2 hours, but it depends on how much time you guys have.
I'm good to keep going. You, Isaac?
I am, yeah.
Okay, there's your answer.
All right, we'll keep going then. Okay, so that's it for external communication. Okay, so our members. So they're our number one target audience. So we do have the members only area on the website. It was suggested that we host more town halls. So that's something I'd like to explore and discuss further. I do think all the members are invited or welcome to attend the board meetings if they so choose, correct?
Yes, except for these ones right now because they're virtual.
Right, okay. And then I think, we do have some BI members that do sit on committees, correct?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And then we have our regular email newsletters and our communications going out. And then I kind of wanted to focus on the one-to-one in-person communication. So kind of an overview of that. What I would like to see is more communication about inviting members to board meetings, about, acknowledging the volunteers that do sit on the committees. I don't know if that could be something added to the website to say, a thank you for our volunteers, but I didn't even really know that people were volunteering or interested. And I think if we really support that avenue, we might get more people involved. I don't know if it's possible to keep building on the website considering the budget, or like, I don't know how involved that is, or if it's
one of
something
the
we want.
thoughts that I had, Cindy, was maybe, and Amanda sort of started this with the board and doing it on Facebook, but doing, with, of course, the permission and approval of the volunteers, doing a highlight maybe once a month or once every 2 weeks of a long-term volunteer.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that at the current point in time might be easier to do or execute on social media, because that would be something that we'd have to get our developer to put on the website, as we don't have access to add a page or add that kind of information on the relevant pages.
Okay. Is that something we can get moving on relatively soon then, is doing the volunteer recognition?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So that'll cover that off. Now, the other thing that was suggested, and I believe it was Alexis had said about town halls and even having virtual town halls, that's not something that I'm overly familiar with. And I'm assuming it's in regards to specific topics. What's the feasibility of us hosting town halls at this point? I think with everything going on, is it an extra burden for people, or is it an opportunity for them to talk about, reopening during COVID, the state of downtown with hiring Canadian Protection Services, to give people a voice? Alexis seemed to think that, now is a good time to kind of engage people and get going and start that connecting. But also, I don't want to open it up if we're not ready to tackle the storm that might hit us.
Okay. I have a few comments. So in the past, and I think Matt was on the board at this time, we were actually doing quarterly or members meetings.
Yeah.
And so it did give, we would get sometimes 5 people, sometimes 20. We would different things, like we would bring in someone to do a presentation on, it could be marketing, it could be on social media, it could be on finances. What we've found though, for the majority of those town hall meetings, it wasn't necessarily our members that were showing up. It was people from, Uxbridge coming down and attending. So, and there were many hall meetings where we did have our members were the majority. So it's sort of a mixed bag. But I think we found that it was better when we had something that they thought would be of value. So if we had someone come in and talk about something, and then, so we'd have like the meeting open up for discussion, or we would start it with, here's a presentation, and have discussion at the end where it can be anything. So it does give them an additional voice. And to be honest, we got, you would think that you'd probably get the same people all the time. We actually got different people. So there were a couple that would come more regularly than others, but we did actually see quite a mix of people, but never more than 20 people at a time.
So what if we, right now, considering the state of everything, did more like brainstorming / problem solving town halls? So say, okay, like the unsheltered population currently, and invite people to engage in a discussion. And then perhaps we could invite like a guest to do a mini presentation to preface the meeting. I know that's a hot topic. And I don't know how well informed the BIA is on everything going on, because there's so many little pockets and snippets and everybody has an opinion. And I guess my only concern is, I know I'm not savvy enough to moderate something like that. Matt, you probably would be good at it. And I don't know if we want to open ourselves up to that, but I think it would be invaluable feedback to how the members are feeling and what they need.
That's just if we have the the technology to support it, right? That'll be the challenge. And then what is the city protocol on us having that virtually?
Yeah.
Well, I can ask about that.
Yeah, let's ask that question first, because obviously in the near future it'll have to be virtually. But again, this is something, to D'Angela's point years ago, that that I pushed for as past chair was for these town halls, Cindy, and you know, again, as a means of just getting more touch points with our membership. And it was, which Angela's already covered off. It was interesting to see the audience that we got, right? I mean, ultimately our goal was to try and engage our membership, but to Angela's comments, we did get some outliers that came from other municipalities to sit on these town hall experiences. But it was just another mechanism, and love it because we did it in the past and kind of had success. And I think we should look at you know, redoing, which is sort of that town hall. What the topic is and what it feels like, we can, you know, discuss at a future date. I mean, first though, we need to figure out logistics of, first of all, can we do it and how to do it.
Yeah, because when you guys were talking about the budget earlier, I know we only have 2,000.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I know some of the platforms for larger things like that, you do have to cover some costs. And I vaguely recall the city doing it. But I mean, because I was like, oh, don't spend all the money. Let's maybe, I don't know. Well, who knows how long COVID's going to transform our way of meeting. But
yeah, but
okay.
but let's plan either way to start having town halls, you know, regardless, right? So we'll look into the virtual aspect, whether we can, first of all. So Angela can ask the city clerk's office what that looks like. And then if we can't, then once things sort of open up and we can start to have stuff in person, we'll definitely let's look to have town halls. I mean, and that's something that we can even open up to the membership as sort of tipping our hat as a board in terms of the planning post-COVID type thing, right? And what does next year's look like with the budget, and not run away from the levy increase part of it too, and start to have, you know, open discussions rather than just at the AGM.
Yeah, for sure.
So just so that you know, in the budget, there is $500 for town hall meetings.
Yeah, virtually that won't go far.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on if our platform here works, then that should be okay.
How many people can you get in?
I believe that's 100.
Okay. So let's find out for sure.
Yeah.
What that looks like and make sure, because again, we've got to be then prepared to deal with that. You know, person 101 can't get in.
But we can advertise it as a maximum of, you know, 90 people can attend.
Yep, but let's find that out and figure out all those logistics first, right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Anything further on that one?
I kind of would like to bring up a similar topic. Roger, Angela, and I have all kind of discussed this a little bit in person, but I want to get your opinions on it. We had talked about perhaps creating a more private Facebook group that falls under our existing BIA page. Our page as it currently stands is very external towards like the residents of Oshawa and tourism and that kind of thing, but we can create a more private page where we only admit members of the BIA, so people who fall within our boundaries, and they could use that as a way to discuss things with us, discuss things with each other, but then it also keeps it off of the more public Downtown Oshawa page. I know Alexis had mentioned that an investor pulled out because of negative comments that they had seen on that page, so that would kind of, if people adopt this page and if people like it, it would make things like that a little bit more private. But I wanted to get everyone's opinion on having that kind of free range outlet online.
My opinion is it can't hurt to try. I mean, if they don't take it up, they don't take it up. And if they do find it useful, then, you know, kind of like nothing ventured, nothing gained. So I'd be in support of trying. I'm not overly optimistic. I think just based on our membership's history of engagement, I think there would probably be a handful who would be active. But yeah, I'd say to give it a shot for sure. It can't do any harm, I don't think.
Okay.
I agree with Cindy there. Yeah. And, you know, I think that, you know, being a facilitator is a good thing as opposed to, you know, of course it's going to happen online and through Facebook and stuff like that. Right. But it just, again, getting back to the whole notion of trying to reel in or get back to some transparency with respect to how we do business, right? It just
Absolutely.
helps facilitate the conversation, shows people that we're open and listening, and I think that the perception could be taken well, right?
Yeah, actually, the only other thing is our resources. Do we have the resource to monitor it and keep it in check, or moderate it to keep it active if needed? That's
that was my only chime in. I mean, I like everything else that I'm hearing. I mean, and then to Cindy's point, I just worry about the engagement factor, because that's what we're lacking right now and have been for several years. But again, nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? My major concern would just be the resource level.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely work it into like our or I guess my position's responsibilities and part of the daily tasks that fall under social media. I definitely don't mind moderating and creating kind of engagement pieces to start conversations on there. But if we could get it going, then too, ideally it would be something that people can start their own conversations on as well, and then we could always create community guidelines and rules for people to hopefully follow, or at least give us a basis for maybe deleting posts, etc., if needed.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Thank you for that.
No problem.
So under BIA members, the last point I wanted to talk about was the one-to-one in-person communication. So that kind of ties into two things. One was the proposal that all the directors take a slice of the membership and reach out and call each member individually to check in and to do all that jazz. I'm still on the fence as to how feasible that is and the onus on each director to do that. But I do know we had some very vocal people with really good ideas and some really strong constructive feedback and some really strong positive feedback. And I think those individuals have a lot of energy. And I mean, a lot was brought to light. Some of it was helpful, some of it not so much. But I think just to reach out on a one-to-one, I know Angela and I had a quick conversation about it, and Angela, I think, is borne the brunt of a lot of hostility, I guess, and a lot of unhappiness. So I understand how, she's almost burnt out with it, but I do think that the voices do need to be heard. And if we're not going to listen, they're going to find somebody else who's going to listen. And at least if we're that direct kind of communication and they feel that they're somehow connected to us and we are listening and we are trying, it might take a little bit of the steam out. So I would like to advocate we can look at personality types and maybe match up people who would work better with some people rather than others. But it's really not a chance for us to tell them what we're doing or to convince them. It's really just for us to do some really strong listening, to record kind of all of their perspectives and bring it back to see what we can build from and change, and acknowledge that we have listened and we have heard them. Granted, there's only so much we can do to change the system to make it to their liking, but that we really appreciate everybody's feedback and input. It's a tricky situation, because once you give somebody a soapbox too, it could turn. But
that's my only concern. That's where I like it sort of in black and white for then us to.
Yeah.
I've been an advocate of reaching out. I think that's a great idea. I'm also, I know that's a pretty good time commitment for the board members to make those calls. Now, here's something I thought about since our last board meeting, just to throw out there, but would we consider sending out a communication that would kind of be like an opt-in, so to speak? So, it could be to the effect of, your board really wants to hear from you, the challenges you're having and how we can help, be a partner to your business. Click here to book a call with one of our directors. something to that effect, where it takes the burden away from calling every single member, and is more like an opt-in type of
Yeah, I like that better.
call.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
No,
just something
that's a great idea, Isaac.
Yeah, and then further to which, I mean, we know who some of the key engaged members are, and maybe we just simply shortlist them and just make it a point to reach out to them ASAP to make that contact, right? So
100%. That sounds awesome to me.
yeah. Okay.
So
So again, it's just going to be what the logistics and cost is associated with it, right?
Yeah, because I know, like, and logistics could be a bit challenging. I know there's automated calendar software out there. Some that's free, some that's paid. Obviously,
Well, I think in fairness, what should happen is the whole board should be available, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So we book the time with the whole board, and then we book individual member times to speak with the board.
Yeah. Would that be a huge resource constraint to have the entire board available, or?
We just pick a day in the calendar, right, and see when we can get the majority of the board members available. So it'll be no different than booking like another board meeting time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose it could be done that way. And I mean, do we have any sense of what we would expect in terms of response to that? Like, I mean, probably not, right? I know that, again, we know what engaged members are, right? But
no, I mean, this is sort of going down. This is sort of a personalized town hall in essence, right?
Yeah, maybe, and maybe we just set aside a day or something.
Yeah.
And it's dedicated, exclusively to that. Yeah. Anyways, those are some ideas certainly that we could share with the board at large. Anyways,
great idea.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so to move that idea forward, Isaac, would you mind maybe drafting a little summary of the proposal?
Yeah. So if I can just kind of summarize the points there. So I would suggest an email communication would go out to all members, informing them of a kind of like personalized, well, we're calling it personalized town hall. That's maybe not the best way of describing it, but personalized invitation to speak to the board at large, and to schedule a time, right? That sounds basically the essence of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Perfect. So I can draft that up. And how should I circulate? Should I circulate that back to you, Cindy?
Because Matt, you'd be bringing stuff forward, right?
Yeah, it'll come back to me, and then I bring that forth at the board meeting.
Okay, so I'll bring it. I'll circulate it back to you, Matt.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
So is that that's a brilliant idea. I'm stoked about that. So with the social media change, Isaac's proposal, is that enough right now for the BIA members to for us to work on engagement with them? Is there any big piece missing? And like, should we just keep moving forward the way we are with those additions? Oh, actually, one of the things I wanted to say for our members, now that we have this kind of new communication strategy happening, should we draft a summary email to them saying, we're working hard on our communications and here's what our focus is going to be, and then and tell them that we're implementing new internal and external processes and whatnot. I mean, once we firm up, obviously, and it goes through the board.
once everything's approved and run through the board level, absolutely.
Yeah, so send out communication to them saying we're working on our communication and here's what's changing. Yep. Okay, so I'll keep that in our back pocket too to let them know. Anything else for members right now? Obviously, it's going to be an ongoing thing, but those changes seem good enough for now.
Yeah,
I think so.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. The remaining 3 externals are just the residents of the city of Oshawa, the Durham region, and tourists. And that's all pretty benign and not really aggressive, or just kind of your standard social medias. The only thing I might request from Roger and Taylor is kind of, in my brain, I had envisioned social media being divided into buckets or pockets, so that we had specific posts targeting residents, specific posts targeting tourists. So it probably will increase the amount going out, which isn't a bad thing, but just kind of with your hashtags or whatever magic you guys work to draw in, really targeting specific audiences instead of a more general audience. And I didn't know if that's a communication strategy or if that's just my personal preference.
It's definitely doable, and I have no issue with the increase in posts. Instagram can get a little messy if you do more than 1 post a day. It's just the engagement really starts to tank. My only, it's not a concern, but the only thing I'd like to really kind of hash out then is what we want our brand voice to be, because if we're advocating to the members, that kind of stuff isn't going to sit well or do well with the tourism aspect and vice versa. So that would be kind of like a really fine line of either figuring out what kind of platforms we want to put each kind of message on, or how we can incorporate that into one voice as opposed to kind of like the tourist versus members one. So I think that's definitely something that we need to hash out more, what we want our brand voice to be, basically.
Yeah, I think my brain got confused because I'm like, okay, so if we do a mini campaign and we're pushing shop local, it's obviously not targeting our tourists. And if we put out some social media posts that specifically say, oh, come explore vacation and stay downtown, like obviously that's not targeted to our local residents. So not like to include everybody, but to make sure everybody's included in their own unique way. But I hear what you're saying about it getting a little bit convoluted.
I think what we're after maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but sort of is a calendar of such on what's the messaging at a given time period in the year, right?
Yeah, or even seasonal, what time people are, well, I guess we have hockey and stuff.
No, I know, but you know, and sort of try to hit and have the messaging around that, right? So you pick and work out your strategy ahead of time.
Yeah, and I think we can definitely do something like that. Alexis, what you were saying about like shop local or come and book a stay here, I think we can definitely incorporate those things into a cohesive voice, because just because you might be coming from out of town doesn't mean that shop local isn't relevant, because you're more supporting the small businesses as opposed to the McDonald's and Walmart chains, those kinds of things. So it can definitely still be relevant, and of course targeting different groups and audiences with different events. I mean, that's not relevant for this year, unfortunately, but we can definitely work on targeting those more vast groups with a similar voice and message.
Yeah, because I'm like a structure girl, so I don't know if it's overkill, but I liked Matt's suggestion of like having a calendar where we kind of do have the buckets to make sure that we're hitting everything on kind of an ongoing or an interval basis.
Yeah, I don't know if it obviously can be amended if things change, right? But you initially want a sort of a calendar plan, right? On this is what it's going to be, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good idea.
So we can leave that with you then, Taylor?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Sorry.
Running a draft for the calendar for the next meeting.
Sorry, what was that, Angela?
Are you guys wanting a draft of the calendar for the next meeting, even if it's just for now until December?
Yeah, I think that'll be great.
Okay.
The other thing, so that's kind of the social media targeting our other externals, but the Durham region, I didn't know if that's like an untapped resource or untapped territory for us, if we want more plugins or representation within Durham, or if we have bitten off enough right now and just kind of chew on what we're doing. But I think there's opportunity there. I just don't know what or how. And we can tape that too, I guess.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure what kind of regional resources are out there, but we can definitely look into it.
Well, this ties into everything, right? And this is I'm having flashbacks from years ago, and Angela, you're probably chuckling right now, because we chased this rabbit into the hole many years ago, and especially getting into the next item where we look at sort of the tourism aspect, and I stepped on some toes many years ago, where in Oshawa we had a huge opportunity with travel and tourism mechanism. And downtown wasn't being presented well at all. It was when you went to the travel and tourism office, it was about other things going on in other municipalities, because we actually took a field trip. The marketing committee actually took a field trip to the station there on Simcoe and Bloor, and yeah, it was an interesting find. So in a nutshell, Sydney, to answer your question, I think there's huge opportunity, and this is near and dear to my heart because I did chase this rabbit once before. It's a resource thing, because I think, to be honest, I think we're missing the boat too with our own city in terms of their tapping into their resource too with their communications and marketing group. There's just so much that we could work collaboratively together, or even unload, so to speak, and have them work with us and do some wild and wonderful things. So I'd like to even back it up, and step one is to work with our local municipality, city first, which will then sort of domino and champagne into the Durham region and the other, right? And of course, we can get our lovely folks at the chamber that work with the tourism part of it engaged again, to see what the opportunity is once again.
Perfect. Okay, so why don't we just put that to the back burner? I made some notes, and I think once we get through some of these initial changes, because we've got a lot going on, we'll be better positioned, even to present ourselves to the broader context there.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So that was the big chunk of what I wanted to get through this meeting. So thank you so much for letting me have so much time of your committee meeting.
Thanks for championing it and taking it on, because it's a big task, and to we're all volunteers, as we know. So but you taking this on is fantastic and much appreciated.
Can I ask a question, Cindy? And I do want to say, overall, like, between you and Roger, great job. This is fantastic what you've already been able to put together here. On part 4, again, which just kind of summarized and went through, is the idea to further kind of elaborate some of the bullets there to include things like draft emails and draft communications as well too, to try to make the process streamlined for who is ever managing this going forward?
When you say draft emails, what do you mean? Like, can you
well, just
that?
certain more so it could be templates. So I mean, there could be inquiries that are similar. Just some sort of communication tools to allow somebody to quickly respond. And obviously, like any communication, it would likely have to be tweaked to some degree, right? But you mentioned, I know it mentions in the internal section between so board of directors. Actually, so sorry, that's not as relevant. But there's likely just certain types of communication that would likely be consistent with certain topics, right? That's what I'm thinking. I don't know. It's just more of a question more than anything, or if we would just simply treat each communication individually and respond, trying to work within the framework which you've already set out here.
I hadn't given it that much thought. I'm almost shy from templated responses because our membership already feels that we're disengaged and not really listening. But I see the value. I see the value in having some standardized stuff prepared. So maybe moving forward, we can have like a repository of kind of standard stuff to draw from and pull from for sure. That makes sense.
I agree. I think it would be a good idea to maybe have a few sample responses, at least maybe not a template where it's kind of fill in the blank, but definitely sample so that people can have an understanding of the tone and context of some emails. And then a while back when we were planning for the Black Lives Matter protests being in downtown, Roger drafted some very cool, I don't want to call them responses because they weren't exactly that, but different scenarios and how to respond to each scenario. So, you know, if it went one way, we could take an apologetic stance or like standing our ground stance, you know, saying that, you know, we stand behind our own messaging, that kind of thing. So I think something like that could be beneficial for this kind of document.
Roger, I think Taylor just voluntold you. That's a brilliant idea. What do you think? What do you think, Roger?
It just depends on how wide of scenarios like we really have, because like with the Black Lives Matter protest, like it could only like, yeah, it could definitely go a lot of different ways, but I think in the end there were only like 5 different scenarios we could play out, and those all ranged on like the level of like peacefulness or like damage control that could be done. So I think it would really depend on exactly like, yeah, like how many different scenarios we have to play out, because if there's more than, I would say like 7 or 8, then this document could get a little like and you'd have to be more like, you would still have to make it more tailored to the situation. So
Yeah,
I think
we can work on that though.
Yeah, we can get a start on it, lay it out, draft it out, and see where it goes.
And not that we want to necessarily focus on the negatives, but those are usually the scenarios where we have to respond. So we could draft up some, you know, more negative or sensitive scenarios, potentially.
I think your point is fair though, Cindy. It sounds like to some degree there's feedback saying that, or you know, at least in terms of how we communicate, that it sounds more personal and human-like. So obviously there's a balance. There's obviously a balance somewhere in there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's just an interim thing where we really have to mend some bridges and really work hard to gain back the trust of some of our members.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. No, fair comment.
Perfect. All right.
Great. Is there any more questions or comments on line item number 10, communications planning? Awesome. Okay, let's move forward. Line item number 11, marketing campaigns. Any update on this, Angela?
Not really. I think Taylor and I and Roger need to sit down and figure out what sort of things we want to do. But I think that sort of actually relates more back to number 8 as well, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I think we're good with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions or comments on marketing campaigns? No? Okay, moving on to line item number 12, digital Main Street update. I think new funding just opened up, did it not?
Yeah, so we need to send, I believe I sent that. I sent it to Roger and Taylor to be put in the update. So we were doing daily updates. Now we're doing the updates twice a week. And you might find within the next week or 2 that they're going to be going out on different days as Roger and Taylor figure out which days that they want to do them, depending on who's sending the information, where they can get it from. As we've noticed that the city sends a lot of things out on Fridays. So if we want to include that, we might do Fridays. But the province sends a lot of things out on Mondays. So they're just working right now to figure out which 2 days of the week is best to do that. So that the Digital Main Street update or information for the new session will be in the next update. And I will also be emailing it out to the members.
Okay. And my understanding is that there's less tutorial time on this go round, right?
Yes, it was 8 hours, and now it's 2.5 hours.
So it's more palatable. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
so it's a significantly less amount of time that each business has to do that. And it's still the $2,500. And as at the board meeting, the BIA OSHA allowed BACD to apply on our behalf. And I've already reached out to Teresa. I haven't sent her our list of members yet. I asked her what she needed, and she hasn't replied. She might be waiting until they actually find out what they get for the grant.
Okay.
And then I'll be contacting her on a regular basis, like each week, saying, who have you seen? How many have you seen? I do know of a few people that have applied, and I've already indicated that to her. So I'll be checking in with those places to find out if BACD has approached them or not.
Okay, awesome. Any questions or comments from the rest of the group on line item number 12? Very good. Okay, moving on to line item number 13, new business. Does anybody have any new business?
You missed 13 is considerations for 2021 budget.
Oh, okay.
Maybe
got a different.
Yeah, you may be looking at the old.
Oh, okay. You changed it on me. Oh, tricky.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I did that because we need to start the budget processing. So I threw this in here so that we could consider some things possibly for 2021, whether we want to consider bus ads, billboard ads, just to get people starting to think about it, right? Any comments, questions, thoughts?
I think I burnt everybody out.
No, I just think there's just a lot going on and what's transpired.
Okay,
You know,
would you guys like for me to just put some numbers together and some ideas with Roger and Taylor? The three of us come up with something for the next meeting and the dollar values. We won't necessarily say, okay, this is what we're thinking for a budget, but we can say this is what would be ideal for advertising in the radio, or if we decided just to do billboards, how much it would be and where they should be.
Nope, that'll be great. Yeah, as a good starting point.
I agree.
Okay, so the three of us will work together on that.
Perfect.
Okay, any comments on line item number 13, considerations for 2021 budget? No. Okay, moving on to line item 14, new business. Any new business from the group? No. Okay, moving on to item number 15, motion to adjourn.
I'll move that motion.
All right.
And I'll second it.
There we go. I think we're all in favor. So thank you everyone for taking the time today. It's greatly appreciated. And I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Great work,
you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.